streaming.
The newer Intel chips are pretty efficient.
Because a new semester, you should probably have people introduce themselves again.
Yeah. Okay. Right. What else? Hey.
Hi, Logan.
I didn't know you guys were. Just like the first time I
There's a lot of people here.
Oh, I
Okay. Mike, can you check the stream? See if it's up.
The what? Oh yeah. It probably is.
That works.
Yep, it's live.
But I guess I had a little more. I see what I was
We're currently streaming.
We're on Twitch right now. On the Andy Lug account. Yeah.
You got any followers?
We made it today, so we have 0 followers.
I wouldn't say it's.
You can become a Twitch affiliate.
We can't save our videos unless we become Twitch affiliated, so we need to get those followers fast.
How many? Like 50? 50?
I don't know what it is. You know?
How many is it?
It's 50 followers and like at least 10 like
Views
average
per
of
stream.
10 concurrent viewers, and you have to stream so many days a week.
All right, so everybody, we're streaming every day. Every Lug member has to watch.
You should just stream like you were just going about your day.
Yeah. Oh, IRL stream. Yeah.
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 It'll be like a vlog or like stream.
Okay.
I don't know how I'd handle it, you know. Like the biggest Twitch channel is actually like a Linux users group Twitch channel. That'd be sick. You know, Ninja's out of there, so like, you know, it's open,
Yeah?
the top spot.
Oh yeah?
Mixer does let you save your videos without being a partner.
We should have made a Mixer
As does YouTube.
Andy Lug account.
Okay, we.
As does
Why are you stunting so hard right now?
No, it's very well. Thank you.
Mike, do we have word about the pizza? Is it coming?
No one's never here.
So it's really hard.
Do they have it yet?
I think.
Oh,
Okay, I'm coming.
I should have brought the plates. Oops. Well,
What?
they should have some napkins.
You're my TA. Come on. No.
No, presumably something that would be wrong.
That's ridiculous. You're absurd. You took a TA post.
Actually, I did actually sign something.
Yeah, just like sign.
Yes?
No, but it's like being excellent.
Yeah.
being excellent. I got the same email.
I already filled it out.
No, you made it do it. No, you made it. No, it's Diane.
I did basically know this. I had no clue about her. I think mine's kind of lazy.
Oh.
Oh,
No restrictions.
I have seen
have you seen, you know?
Mike, check to see if the audio is working too for the stream.
Yeah, I'll check my phone.
Let's see what my audio input capture is. That should be the mic display capture. Okay.
Yes, it's working.
It's working? Okay.
Well, I mean, that is.
Do you feel bad or?
I feel bad. That you're stealing my pizza?
Not stealing your pizza. I might put it below afterwards and see if you feel bad. I might
Let's
go to
see.
You could eat at lunch. Just bring the food. You wouldn't make you share.
No, Yoshi.
But yeah, because you share pizza with friends. Oh, good. You like pizza.
Okay, Mike, I guess we should just get started. Noah said we shouldn't wait for him. I don't know how long the pizza will take. He said we shouldn't, I believe. Alright, hey guys, welcome back to Lug. Great to see you all. Pizza will be here pretty soon. Oh, what is that? Wait.
You're awesome. Just mute the tab. Oh, that works too.
Sorry. Anyway. So yeah. Right now, Noah's getting the pizza with Sam. They should be here in like a few minutes. I guess it's just running late. Since it's starting a new semester, we should probably have everyone introduce themselves again so we're all on the same page. So how about let's start over here?
Sure. I'm Keegan. I'm a sophomore CS major from Morrissey.
Which year?
Sophomore.
Sophomore, okay. Sorry.
I'm Nick. I'm a sophomore CS major from Morrissey.
I'm Brian. I'm in that hall. I'm a freshman in bachelor engineering.
Hi, I'm Julius. I'm a junior CS major from Sovereign Hall.
I'm Mike. I'm a junior from Siegfried Hall, computer science, and I'm vice president of the club.
I'm Sarah. I'm a junior, also major in computer science and in PE.
I'm Christina. I'm a junior CS major living in Washington.
Brad, sophomore CS, living in Balmer/Gilbert.
I'm Blaze, also sophomore, also computer science, also Balmer/Gilbert.
I'm Joshua. I'm a CPA sophomore.
I'm Spencer, CS sophomore, Fisher.
I'm Emily. I'm a CTEC junior.
I'm Iman. I'm a CS junior from Alumni.
I'm Ben. I'm a junior CS from Alumni. I'm Jacob. I'm a sophomore.
Anyone else?
I'm Eric. I'm a sophomore CS major.
Okay, and then let's see. Did we get everyone? Okay. I'm Logan. I'm the president of Lug. We also have Noah Yoshida. He's not here right now. He'll be here soon. He's the treasurer, and then we have Sam Talio. We also have a new secretary because I don't know if you know Gavin. He's abroad right now, so we have Zephin, but he couldn't make it today, so we'll introduce him at the next meeting. So today we'll do some logistics stuff first, and then after that we'll be going through basically an open source media pipeline. And we'll also be introducing, Mike will be introducing OBS, which we're using right now to stream and record this meeting. So first things first, welcome back to Lug. It's great to see you all again. We have a lot planned for this semester. For example, this means open source media production. Next meeting we'll be doing, I think, a TMUX meeting. So I don't know if a lot of you know about TMUX, but it's basically a way that you can have like a window manager in your terminal. So you can keep programs running in the background if you have to like disconnect from SSH. You can have multiple sessions. You can have like multiple panes, and it's really useful if you do a lot of stuff in the terminal. So like, for example, let me just show it off. So you see I can have different tabs. I can split it in half if I want. Let's see. Like that. You can do stuff like that. So it's really useful. Especially if you're in like systems or operating systems, I highly recommend it. Moving on, so let me pull up my list of upcoming meetings. So notes, notes, log, events. Oh, where did I put it? Events, media production. So yeah, so basically this is just like a brief preview of the meetings we have coming up. So we're thinking about doing one on remote computing. That's actually what I have up right now. You can see that this desktop is actually a Linux desktop that's running in my dorm room right now. And so I'm just like basically remoting in from my Windows tablet right now. Just because I like the workflow. It means I don't have to carry around like my more powerful computer. You just have a like small little laptop to act as a terminal. and it'll also cover other things like different methods you can do remote computing. Obviously, like you have a lot of y'all have seen SSH, but we'll be covering some more advanced, like powerful ways to do that. We'll also be covering Jupyter Notebooks, which is kind of an interactive way to do like Python and a few other languages, and be able to test it immediately and like have little snippets of code that you can run independently. We're thinking about doing a hackathon where everyone's given a Raspberry Pi to work on and you make a little project on it. I don't know if y'all know about the makerspace downstairs. It should be opening, I think, about a week or so. We'll see. It's still up in the air, but they'll have a lot of cool like equipment that we can use. So we're still in talks to reserve that space so we can use for like a weekend to do a hackathon. Same thing with the makerspace. We'll be doing some 3D printing there using Blender, which I'll be showing off today. We'll have another install fest. For those of you who weren't last time, it'll be pretty similar. We're going to work on the issues with the booting that we had last time, because I know a lot of people couldn't dual boot because of the secure boot options. So we'll make sure to figure out that before we have the install fest. And then we'll have some distro customization and a shell and text editor showcase. All right, so now we'll have Mike, our vice president, present a little bit about OBS, which is a way you can stream and also like record videos on your computer. All right, you want to come up?
Yeah. You want me to use yours? Or?
Yeah, you can use mine.
Okay, so this is OBS. It's a free program. Do you mind if I? It is. You can download it. So depending on what version of Linux you use, you're going to get it from normally your package manager, but you can get it from the website too. But if you wanted to see how you get it on Linux, they have instructions for Ubuntu, Arch, all the popular distributions. And so when you go to stream, the first thing you're going to see when it pops up is, I don't see it in the Windows version, but basically what you do is you give it the stream key, for which is basically tells like platforms that that's what I'm streaming to. I mean, it's not like too much to describe about it. But.
Yeah. Also, you can see down on the bottom left of the screen. If you want to see this on your computer, you can open up the Twitch stream. You can add different sources, so you can really customize your stream. You can add images. You can add little like audio snippets. So you can add like, for example, if you have a playlist of music you want to run in the background, you can add that as an audio source.
You can add your webcam. Does this have a webcam?
It has a webcam.
There we go. There's me.
You can add your webcam.
You can size it however you prefer. So I can get the target. There you go. It's pretty simple to use. Yeah.
Yeah, it was honestly really straightforward. I just started using it today, and it's pretty easy to pick up.
You pick it up in like 5 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, probably webcam. All right, good luck.
All right. So now what we'll be doing today is we're going to kind of do like a 1,000-mile overview of all these programs, and just quickly show like a media pipeline I usually use for some of my assignments. We'll start off with making a vector graphics, a little logo, and then we'll take that, we'll import it as a PNG and a GIMP, make some edits to that, and then we'll use it as a texture on a 3D model and make a 3D animation using Blender, and finally show that off in this program called VLC that can play a whole bunch of media sources. You can stream from it, you can add Spotify to it, all sorts of stuff. So a little bit about Inkscape. This is most graphics programs you probably use, like Photoshop, those usually work based on pixels. So you set like the size of the canvas, right? And then when you color, you're basically coloring in pixels and editing pixels. Inkscape's a bit different. It's a vector-based drawing program. So when you work with Inkscape, you work with these things called Bezier curves. So for example, let's see. I can make a simple curve like this. So you see that's just a line, and you can make a bunch of lines. But you can also add curves to your lines and do like this. And you might be wondering, like, it's so easy in Photoshop to just like, draw in certain features. Why would you want to use a vector-based like graphics program? The thing is, with vector-based graphics, you have basically infinite resolution. So I can just keep zooming in, and you'll never see pixels, right? And so that's why it's so powerful, and that's why a lot of companies use it when they design logos, is because you want to, when you design a logo, you want to be able to like blow it up and put it on buildings, or like shrink it down and have it be the same, you know, dimensions and everything, always preserved. And so usually what companies will do is they'll design their logos in a vector-based graphics language or program, and then when they need to like actually put it on media, they'll then export it as like the certain size they want. So basically in Inkscape, I'm going to go through just the general workflow I've been doing for the last few days and we're going to create just a simple little like penguin to use. So Inkscape has these things called shapes. So you saw earlier I was drawing with points, right? And it had those little handles that we can edit. I can show you that again really quick. So right, I can like pull this and stretch it out. I can move these points around, things like that. Usually when you start using Inkscape, it's a bit easier to start with like a general shape, because they have these 3 powerful shape tools. They have like the circle, they have the star, which is also the polygon tool, and then they have the box. So those will get you started with like a basic primitive shape, and then usually from there I'll start defining it. So for example, if I wanted to make like a penguin head, I'll make him blue. And then what I can do is you can also set like different aspect ratios. So like if I want a perfect circle, I'll hold down Control and Shift. So Shift keeps it in its same place, like same center, and then Control keeps the proportions the same. So you see, perfect circle. And then it has some increments too. So I'll make just a little head. And then I'll go to my select tool, just grab him, move him over. These shapes also have some special handles. So for example, you can make little like pie charts or cut off part of the circle just by moving these handles. And obviously you can still like undo, redo, stuff like that. Usually after I make my general shape and I'm happy with it, I'll do this thing called convert object to path. And once that's done, then you can see the points. Now we have it like our old points where I can move each point individually. So that can be like our penguin head, and then we can make a penguin, let's see, we can make a penguin body. So let's make it like that. Move this back here. Oh, you can also change these features up here. These are the different values. So my sweep angle would be 360. And then another powerful thing you usually want to do is align elements. So for example, I can select both of these elements, and then over here you can see I can set them to align themselves based on the center. And then I can also use Control while moving an object to keep it on the like XY axis. So I just move the head a little bit up. And for the body, let's see, I'll convert this to a path. Now, you can also do multi-selects, so I can do a box select on these 2 points and move them together. So, and I'll use Control to keep it in the center and just give him more rounded body. And now that I'm happy with the general shape of the body, I can select both of these objects and you can combine them by putting them in a group. Actually, I'll wait 1 second to do that, because another feature you can do is you can duplicate objects. So I just duplicated with Control D, and then let me shrink this down a little bit. Control Shift. So I can make a duplicate, and then this is a really nice way to sort of break out shapes, because what I can do with this duplicate, I'll move it down a little bit, and then you can basically, in vector-based drawings, a lot of the work you'll be doing is with different shapes. So now that I have these 2 shapes, I kind of want to make one shape that's just this outer shape without this inner box. And the way we do that is we do these things called Boolean operations. So the one I use a lot is called difference. So if I go to path, I can do difference. And now those 2 objects, it basically took the difference between them. So it took the inner object and sort of cut it away from this outer object. So now if I look inside of my line edit, you see here, now this is just one shape where I can kind of edit this inside. So like if I wanted to add a cool little like wave in the belly, take these two, let's see. That one. Show me the other handles. Control. So you can add like different effects like that by moving both handles at once. I don't know why it's not showing me the regular movement handles. Like these are the rotation handles. Sometimes they can be a little bit finicky about that when it's just like on the same plane. Let's see. Anyway, you get the idea. Now at this point, I'm happy with how the body is, I'm happy with the head shape. So I'll take these two objects and I'll group them together into one object. So now let's add a little face to it. We can go back to our circle. Oh, I gotta change the color so you can see it. Control Z. Control Shift. So add another circle. Move it over. Shrink it down a bit. And then for every Inkscape object, you have basically a fill color and a path around the object. And so, for example, if I wanted to add like a white outline to this eye, I can go to stroke paint. So the stroke paint is a path around it. I can add right here, and then give it a color down here. Let's just give it a white outline. So now if I move this on top, and then I can also increase the stroke width. So let's say maybe 2. Maybe a bit bigger. So you see I can increase the stroke size around the eye, and then I'll shrink this down a bit more. Not good enough. And then, as I said before, I can use Control D to duplicate this. So now I have 2 eyes. And then I'll keep them on the same axis using the Control key. I can select now both eyes, group them together to like a pair of eyes, and then use, as I said earlier, my alignment tool and align it to the body. And now I'm pretty happy with that. I think that looks alright. I can combine these into one object, so I just have one penguin. And then finally we can add the bill and the feet. So the bill and the feet, I probably won't be able to do a good version right now, just because I kind of want to get on to more stuff. But basically, the way I went about creating them, I'll show you the other version, is pizza. And while I'm doing this, feel free to go get some pizza, because this will be just kind of like getting the shapes right. Yes.
What's the whole point of doing the, what was it, create objects in path or set objects in path?
So usually when you're working in Inkscape, the basic shape is nice to just get like a building block off of, but we can't really change the features of that shape. So for example, I don't have access to these nodes where I can like pull it up and down like that. So when it's just like the shape, you only have keys to control aspects about that shape. Like if it's a polygon, you can set how many sides, things like that.
Hey Gavin.
It's yellow. Another nice feature when you're working with these nodes is that you can do things like auto smooth the nodes. So now you can see I have like a smooth little foot here that I just got from just making a basic shape and then just auto smoothing. And then as I said, you can always move the individual nodes if you want to change it up a bit. So I'll shrink this down a bit. Shift. I'll line these up. So now right here, I want to rotate the foot a bit, so it looks like it's like sitting with its feet out like that. So if I double click this, I'll get the rotation handles. I can rotate it slightly like this. And then, remember before when we were making pairs of things, you usually do a duplicate. And here, I also want to do, you can flip it horizontally. And then, let's see. I'll get the general spacing for the feet. Group them together into one object. Align it with this one. And that's the feet. And then you get the, I won't do the bill right now. I have another one with it already completed. But when you're done with it, you can save this as a vector object, but usually you want to export it as an image. So I usually go down to export PNG image so that I can edit in GIMP. So you can choose here what you want the file name to be. You can find the location here if you want. And then once you're done, you click export as. So I'll show you the penguin I made earlier. Open. And then this should be under class. And log media production. So this was just like a quick little penguin I made using Inkscape. So now let's take this penguin and, as I said, let's export it. So export PNG image, export as, and I'll say our penguin, media production, and then save it in here. So now this will export after I select this, and then click export. We'll now get an image that we can see if I go to Nautilus, class, log, media production. You can see it's saved as a PNG here. So now I'm going to go into GIMP. I'm going to open our image. So I'm going to go into class, go into log, media production, penguin, and open it here. So as you can see, GIMP's also close to Photoshop. This is more for photo manipulation. So if you already have photos, this is really good for doing touch-ups, color changes, all that. So as you can see, I brought our penguin here as a PNG. And so now, let's say I don't really like the colors. I think they're a little bit too bright, and maybe I want to give it more like Notre Dame colors. This is probably the most useful tool in GIMP for me at least, is the magic wand tool. this will basically select areas of similar color. So for example, I can select a foot, I can select the whole body, I can also select the eyes. So let's say I want to change all this blue color into a slightly darker blue. So I'll select all the blue places. I'll take out my, you've probably seen this in MS Paint, like the little bucket tool. And I can just quickly change the color there. And same thing for the other yellow color. So I'll take this. And then, like most programs, you hold shift to extend your selection. So every time I click there, I held shift. So now I have all the yellow areas, and I'll change those too. Control Z. The slightly darker. And maybe I'm thinking like on these feet, this white area I don't like, I'd rather it be transparent. So I can use the magic wand tool again. Click on both of those and just delete them. And so now that's transparent around there. A few other things you can do. GIMP's really, really powerful. It's a little bit hard to use, so I recommend looking up some tutorials, but especially for photos, like you can change the color temperature, the color balance in the image. So if I show you the split view, I can like change different aspects of the colors. Usually this is better for photographers who know what they're doing. Usually I don't, so I just like mess around and try to find something cool. You can do, they have a lot of different filters you can add. It has layers obviously, so you can, what I usually do when I'm working in GIMP, if I want to make a cool image, I'll open multiple images in different layers and then just stack them on top of each other. You can adjust different curves for color, like this. So if I wanted to make it like slightly darker, I can do that. And then when I'm happy with, like, sure, that's good enough, I can press OK. And then similar to Inkscape, it saves it in its own special format, like a GIMP file. And so when we want to get it out as something usable, like a PNG, I can click this export as, and I can do like rpenguin edited.png, and then export that. This is a bunch of stuff. Usually, like, I don't care what this says because the defaults are good enough. I just export it there. I'll be honest, like, GIMP has a lot more features. I've seen a lot of crazy stuff made with it, but I don't know how to use that one myself. I just use it for basic touch-ups like that. So now on to Blender. Actually, let me close that. Discard changes. And close that. Close that same. Have to run Blender. File. Recent. Yep. And then layout. So this next program we see, this is probably, I think, the most powerful of the programs. Like, this is used a lot in industry. It's actually overtaking some other popular programs like Maya and 3ds Max that you typically see. This is called Blender. It's technically a 3D modeling program, but there's so much in this software that it's almost becoming like an everything design program. So it has 3D modeling, 3D sculpting, texturing, animation, compositing. You can do crazy stuff with scripts. It had a game engine in it once. Like, it is an absolutely crazy program. And the thing about it is that it's also free and open source. Like, you can just go download this on your own computer and just get started with it. Like, I spent a lot of time with Blender, and I still feel like I've only learned like 1% of its features because there's just so much to it. 3D modeling, it can be a little bit hard to get into because it's an interesting workflow. With 3D modeling, at least the things I usually touch on are just like basic modeling, basic materials, and then just render it out. So usually what you'll be doing when you're doing 3D modeling is you work with these things called polygons. So you can see in this ship, for example, we see that's made up of these like distinct planes, right? Which are a bunch of points that are just connected by lines. So for example, you start off in this thing called object mode. So just like Inkscape where we have those little graphics objects, these are just like 3D objects. So I have this little ship here. With objects, you can I can grab it, move it around. I can move it along a specific axis. I can rotate it. I can scale it up and down. Also, I can, if I go into edit mode with tab, I can, for example, select a face on an object, grab it, move it around. I can also add faces, like extend stuff. So if I, let's see, select, where's my face select? So yeah, face select, and then no 3D. So I can select a face, I can extrude it. So I can like pull out faces from other faces. So usually, this is how I made the ship basically, is I started with just like a plain box. I can actually show you the workflow a little bit. Let me get out of edit. So I'll go into object mode. I'll add a mesh cube. Let me just move this up a bit. And then pan a little bit. So we're looking more at the cube. So now I have this cube object. So you see in object mode, I can select each object individually. And then edit mode is looking at a specific object. So now I'm looking at this cube. I could, for example, grab this face, move it along the Z. Let me turn off flipping. Grab Z. I could change its size. I can then pull out faces from it. So I'll pull out this face, put it there, maybe scale it down a bit on the Z axis. And you can see like doing this just by extruding and pulling out and then scaling, you can make a lot of interesting shapes. So, and then if I keep extruding, I can set now scale 0 to get a fine point if I wanted, for example. And then another thing you can do with objects, thing that I like to do is once you get the basic shape done, so I'm just going to delete this shape. Like you see this ship, you see how it's all boxy? And usually when you see a model, you want it to look all cool. Is once you get the basic shape, you can just tell Blender, hey, make it look more smooth. Like make it look cooler. And then now suddenly, you know, the ship's got a lot, it takes your original like shape and just smooths it out all around, while keeping the same geometry. So if I move this down, you can see it's got the same geometry as before. It just smoothed it out all over. And you can also add other modifiers like this. So for example, maybe I want to give it a cool wireframe. I'll add a wireframe monitor or wireframe modifier, and then now it basically takes our original object and makes like a skeleton out of it. And if I want to see what that looks like more in like a rendered sense, you get it right there. So if these polygons are like the base, materials are like the skin on top. So I'll go into my materials editor. So I have a material right here that basically mixes in just a kind of a standard blend material and a texture. So I'll just show off the blend material really quick. I might not be able to do it here because I made it in the node. Let me go to my shading. And then, so this is like the base material. I can, for example, lighten it up a bit. I can change some of the properties, like I can make it more metallic. So you can see it kind of gets like a bit darker and gets more reflections. There's a lot of other like weird combinations you can do, and you can also link these shaders together. So I said this was the base shader right here. Usually you want to put multiple shaders to get cool effects. So for example, Control Z. Let's see. I have this other shader above here that's used for adding a texture. So for example, let's add our penguin from before onto our little model. So I'll take our penguin edited, open that image, and if you look, suddenly we have penguins on our little plane. Now I did some magic before this to line everything up correctly, and actually I'll show you a little bit of that. So when we're working with textures, it's this thing called UV editing. I forget what the UV stands for, but it basically means we're trying to figure out a way to map these flat images onto our 3D surface. And so let's say I wanted to add the penguin to this face up here that I have selected. So I'll select the face, and then here's like on this side is our texture viewpoint. So if I bring in our like Inkscape penguin, let's see. Class logs, BD production, or penguin edited, and open it. And then usually what you want to do is, right now, this is basically the plane that we're looking at, but you see how it's all scrunched up? Usually you want to UV unwrap it, and what this will do, you'll see, you get this weird box right here. This box is basically our plane with the same sort of scale as our image. So, for example, you might think, oh, I just want it to be like a regular box. But if I start moving this, you see how the scale of the feet starts to get all distorted? So usually when you're working with textures like this, you want to unwrap and then just do like basic operations like scaling and then centering. So for example, I kind of want the full penguin to be on here the same direction as the other penguins. So I'll rotate this, I think it's negative 90? Oh no, it's positive 90, okay. Rotate 90. And then I'm going to scale this up. And then move it a little bit along the z-axis, or along the y-axis, sorry. And then scale it down just a smudge. And now you can see, if we look at our layout, that our penguin appears on our model. And let me take out the wireframe modifier so you can see it better. So you see here, we have a new penguin on the front of our little ship. So now that's basically like texturing in a nutshell. That's about the extent I know about it. There's a lot more you can do, but as I said, like I'm not really a design major, so I kind of just learned this stuff in my free time. There's a lot of resources out there for you to learn this stuff. I always watch like YouTube videos. They have a bunch of online guides. Like that's the nice thing about open source software is that you find a lot of resource out there because like anyone can access the software and anyone can just pick it up and start working with it. And then finally, we'll go over some basic animation stuff. So the way animation works in these programs is that if you ever know like hand-drawn animation, the kind of process there is you try to get the major poses and then you have someone else draw the in-between poses. So you have like your good animators who make like the big motions or the big scenes you want to have, and then you get like some newer animators who like aren't as experienced in that, and they just draw the in-between shots. So for example, if you have someone throwing a football, they'll make like a shot like this and then a shot like this, and then they'll get the other animators to make all the in-between poses. So it's kind of the same in 3D animation. So for example, let's say I want to do a simple animation where the ship is doing a rotation over time. Just like in regular like hand-drawn animation, you have these things called frames, which are individual moments in time. And if you ever heard, like you've seen videos 60 frames per second or movies 24 frames per second, those are the same frames we're talking about here. So usually with Blender you'll export to 24 frames per second just because it goes a lot faster than 60 frames per second, because you only have to do 24 images per second and it's a lot less tax on your computer. But if you really want good high quality video, you can go for the 60 frames per second, but usually then you'll have to like go to some like purchase like a render farm, they call these. They're like servers out in the cloud that you can tell to like, oh, render this animation out for me, because most computers aren't really, unless you want to wait like days for your animation to come out, they're not powerful enough to do these big scale animations, but it works for simple animations. So let's say I want to make this ship rotate around the y-axis. So let me delete my original keyframes actually. Can I do it from here? The keyframe, and then here, the keyframe. Select this one, and the keyframes. Okay, so right now I have no keyframes. I'm going to set my start to be 0. So you see here we have a start. So this is where my animation starts, this is where it ends. I'll add like my base keyframe, so this is where I'm starting at. So I'll just add a keyframe, and that will be about my rotation, because all I'm dealing with is rotation here. And then, for example, let's say I want to make a full revolution once I get to frame 24. So I go to frame 24. Let me go get a little bit less tax on Blender. Go to this one. So frame 24, and then rotate on the Y. Actually, I can do this better from the object properties. So let's see. So when I'm at 0, my keyframe's at 360. Okay. So when I get to 24, I'll add a keyframe Y equals 0. So 0 degrees. And so now if I insert a keyframe here, again on rotation, it'll sort of extrapolate the changes over time. So if I play this animation, you'll see each frame, it'll like slowly rotate around and extrapolate the frames in between. I'm getting a little bit slow on, I don't know why Blender's actually a little bit slow. So I'm just gonna reopen it really quick. So I'm gonna save this, and then close, and then just rerun Blender. Then file, open recent, flagship.blend. Okay, so we're back where we were. So if I do shift start, you can see we only added 2 keyframes, and then it just does all the work in between. You can do other things, like for example, if you wanted to slowly, for some reason, make the ship bigger over time, we can then add another keyframe for our scale. So let's say I'll make it kind of tiny, and then insert a keyframe about scaling, and then when we get to frame 24, I'll add another keyframe for scaling, or actually I'll make it bigger first, and then another keyframe for scaling, and then if we play the animation again, you'll see it becomes bigger over time. Now that we have all our keyframes in place, let's say that we want that to be our animation. We have to decide how we're going to look at the animation. Like, because right now in Blender, we can just move around, you know, go around the object like this. But when you have a movie, you usually have some sort of camera, right, that's keeping track of the motion. It's the same way in 3D animation. So in 3D animation, you usually have a light source and you have a camera. Blender usually sets them up for you automatically, just like a basic light and a basic camera. We can actually see, I think, how do I do camera view? View camera. So I have a camera in the scene already, and so this is basically what the camera sees. And if I run the animation, you'll see it's already pretty well placed for what we want. But I can always, like, if I wanted to, like, grab this camera and move it around just like any other object. So let's say I wanted to move it over here. I can just grab it, throw it over here, view camera. And see, now it's over here and facing a different direction. I forget all the camera controls. You can like be inside the camera and like change its view, or you can like make it track an object. But I didn't figure that out for this meeting, but I've done it before, because you can set objects to go along a rail and then the camera will keep track of the object, things like that. So let me just go back there. And then now let's say I'm happy with how the animation is. Like, if I can see it in a real-time rendering view like this, and just run it like this. Like, that looks good enough to me. So now I want to make a video out of this animation. So right now I'll go to my animation tab. You don't really need to. These are just different ways to pull up different windows in Blender. But if I wanted to, I could just open new windows and then set what window it is in like the options. Because all these are, you can move any of them around, you can pop them out as like separate windows. You can really customize it if you want to. So now I'm going to go to my output settings. So now it's time to make some decisions about the quality of the video I want to produce. Usually, if you're just making quick animations, you don't want to go for like 1080p 60 frames per second, because otherwise you have to wait like 30 minutes for an animation. And since I don't want to do that here, I'll keep it at like 720, And they have some presets for people who know more about this than I do. So you can set it for different sort of displays if you want. But I think I just went with like the, let's see, the 720 HDTV 720, and it worked well enough for me. You see here you can set frame start and frame end again. You can choose the step size. So if you want to go like 2 frames or 2, how does it go? If you have a step size of 2, then now it'd be like having 12 frames per second, which, I mean, I guess you can do. They have a whole lot of other options. You can choose where you want to store it. So for example, I want to store it in, let's see, Yokum, class, vlog, media production. So I'll store it in here and call it our movie, and then accept. And then I'll store it. You can choose the file format. I choose AVI RAW because sometimes if you choose FFmpeg, it can, especially for short videos, it's not really worth it because it's so short that it'll take more time decompressing the video than it will actually playing the video. So I just go for a RAW. And you can choose to put in black and white or color. I'll keep it color. I think that's good for output. You can also, they have some different rendering engines. The big one right now is the new rendering engine called Eevee. This is a real-time rendering engine, so that's why we can do stuff like this, where we see like the actual material properties in the render. I also should probably add those modifiers back in when I think about it. So let me go to my modifiers. Where is my modifier tab? There it is. And then viewport, page. So yeah, I'll add in a basic wireframe one. And then animation. And there's a lot of other stuff you can add to the rendering. You can add different things like motion blur, ambient occlusion, some bloom, which is like these are basically camera effects, like what traditional cameras have. They usually have some motion blur, and they'll also have like different effects as the light comes into the camera. So you can mimic that in Blender by changing these different options. But the defaults are usually pretty good for just simple animations. And then let's see. You can set how many passes you want to do. So usually if you're doing a final render, you want to set a lot of passes, but for something quick, you usually want to set lower, because remember each pass basically means that it does a whole nother image that it's rendering. These are good though. The reason why you want to do multiple passes is with light sometimes you get these things called noise in your image, because with the 3D animation program, it basically calculates a bunch of light particles bouncing around, and if sometimes they leave like little artifacts, like little bright white spots or black spots where the light didn't get, and by doing more passes, it will clear out that sort of noise that comes with it. Eevee though, I haven't really noticed like that much noise, so they've definitely gotten a lot better since I last tried some animation with Blender. You see it a lot more with the Cycles rendering engine. So yeah, let's just render out a simple video. So once you're happy with it, you can render either a picture or you can render a whole animation. So since we want to get a video, I'm gonna render our animation. I think it was Control F12, Control F12. And so now, since I ran it with my GPU, it's pretty quick. So I think it just finished. And then if I go into my video editing, so Blender is also a video editor. It's got like everything in it, as I said. And then let me delete that. Actually, is this the one we made? No. Okay. Erase strips. Delete. So I'm gonna add in our video. I think you gotta go to add. Movie. And then you can see, here's our render right here, our movie. These are just, it adds extra numbers in case you want to do multiple renders. It'll like keep increasing the numbers as you do more renders. So I add this in. And then, sorry, let me close this. And I'll align this to grab. Nope. Grab. 2 at a time. And then I should be able to just play. Oh, did I do something wrong? Let's see. Let me try it in VLC. So VLC is a program that is basically like, I guess Windows Media Player, but it has a lot more features. So it can, for example, you can view Twitch streams through it. You can use YouTube DL with it, which is a program to download videos from like a bunch of different websites, including YouTube. You can make custom playlists with this and save it. It supports both videos and audio. So for example, if I want to open our animation in it, I can go to Yokum class, and debug, media production, and then, oh, it doesn't have a light source. I think that's what the problem is. Did I delete the light source? Let's see. This is the light source. This is the camera. This is the perspective of the camera. Oh. Let me try it without my GPU. Let's see, Blender. And you'll see kind of the difference between CPU and GPU. Because usually when you're working with 3D animation, you want to use a GPU, because then it can run the renders in parallel. So instead of having to do one frame at a time, with a GPU you can basically start creating all the frames at once. So I'm going to open recent, our lug chip. It's going to take a little bit. And then, let's see. Rendering engine. I think it should work. Let's see. Let's give it another try. Control F12. 7. 24. Then let's go back to VLC. Open file. I don't know why it's not rendering. I'll show you the one I made earlier. Let's see. If I go to, actually, I should just be able to go to completed. So this one I was working on earlier. Just a simple render, kind of like the one we were doing, just a little less complex. So if I ship movie compressed, and then go here, so you can see here, just a little simple animation of it spinning around. I'll try to figure out why it wasn't rendering correctly and get back to y'all later, but that's basically the pipeline I follow when I want to do like some cool visual stuff in Linux or just open source in general. You can find all these same programs on Windows and Mac, so if you want to like keep using your same setup, you can get them there too. And just the great thing about open source, I think, for all these programs is just, at least for me, the amount of resources out there and the ease in which you can just pick it up and start messing around with it. Because like I remember back in high school, Blender was a bit more janky back then, but it was a really cool way to get into 3D modeling. 'Cause, like back then, I think 3ds Max and Maya were both about like at least $500. And so if you want to start like experimenting with like 3D modeling or animation, you got to put down like $500 on the spot, and just you might lose that if you don't have an interest in it. So yeah, that's basically all I have for y'all today. If you have any questions, feel free to come talk with me after. And I think we'll be covering especially like Blender and Inkscape some more in this coming semester. So thank y'all. All right. Yes. I use it every now and then.
That's really cool.
I kind of just dabble with it though, because like it can be a little bit overwhelming.
Yeah, no,
there's just so many features.
I like once downloaded it and I was just like, yeah, no.
But definitely like the newer versions, they really improved the UI.
Yeah,
like
it looks a lot better.
So I really like it.
Yeah, well, your girls can wear it. So that might be. Yeah. Oh, this okay. You don't need to, they just know that they have the skill set. What was that?
So it's like a.
Oh,
It's kind of like all these.